Well, hey, got just a few of the regulars here tonight, light crowd. That's all right. You can kind of expect that this time of year. There's plenty of folks watching behind the camera. As always, it's cold and getting colder, guys. We kind of reached the end of fall and we're going into winter. We're in that what I would call fall to winter transition with the water temps we're experiencing right now. So tonight, what we're going to talk to you guys about is fall to winter transition, the adjustments that you need to make for the seasonal patterns that are going to be occurring here as of right now going forward, and then also the relevance and effectiveness of live sonar. Live sonar is so stinking good in the wintertime.
Looking at you doing it.
Live sonar is so good in the wintertime. The little man's excited about live sonar, apparently. It is. It's so member. Yeah, it's so good in the wintertime, and we're going to try to explain to you guys why it is so good and why you need to focus on using it. Anybody here have live sonar on their boat?
Well, I got it, but I haven't put it on yet.
So, all right. So we got a few that do have it. You fishing coat, you got on yours? Yeah. Okay. So we got a few in the house, and if you don't have it, man, we might be selling it to you tonight because it's over the wintertime. If you're going to fish, it's a lot like the Alabama rig. It's not always cheating, but it gets pretty dang close to it when it's right.
Let's just say income tax time is
coming. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But we are, man. We're getting the water temps down around the 60-degree mark, right? So that's what's happening. We're getting close to it. I mean, I have seen a couple mornings where the shallow water is 59, but we're getting established throughout the day water temps in the lower 60s. I've heard some other people say that's the bass's favorite temperature. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Bass's favorite temperature is the same as ours is. It's about 70 to 72 for most people. When it starts getting, man, you can feel that water. It's cold. They're a cold-blooded creature. They are affected by those temperature changes 10 times more than even we are. They don't have clothes. Their body temperature completely changes. Their metabolism, everything changes when those temperatures swing. So they feel it 10 times more than we do. And to me, when you hit that 63 in the spring, that's hitting that lower 60s in the spring is a different deal than hitting that lower 60s in the fall. And the reason it's different is because when you're going to that in the spring, the water's been cold, 40s, 50s. And then it trends up into the 60s, it makes them feel better. Well, those fish were suffering when the water was 85 to 90, and then it cooled off into the 70s. They felt great. Then it got to 70 for a while. Boy, they really went on that fall feed. Now it gets down there into the lower end of the 60s, and it's like, whoa, this don't feel so good anymore. So it's not, in my opinion, their favorite temperature. It is when you're going to start seeing activity levels decrease in fish, the shallow fish especially. They're more shocked than any of them. And you see that where the shallow fish, when the water temps were around 70, 68, 72, all around in there, boy, the shallow fishing was the deal. And you were getting schools of big fish up shallow chasing big shad. We had that little small window of fall, big swim bait bite. Now you can, on the right days, still go out and catch some big fish up shallow this time of year when the water's in the low 60s. That is a possibility. But if you're on these post-frontal days, like we've had like 2 weeks of almost nothing but, other than a couple days, it's been nothing but post-frontal, water temps trending downward, and a lot of bluebird skies, a lot of cooling temperatures, a lot of post-frontal situations that we've had for the last 2 or 3 weeks around here. And that has really forced us into somewhat of a little bit of an early fall to winter transition for us here in this region. Not too far out of line. It usually happens within the first couple weeks, week or two of December is usually when it goes down. We're going into the last week or two of November, so we're just a few weeks ahead of time. We're not that far out of the normal range. So what happens to these fish? Right now in Lake Fork, we're low. The lake's, how low is the lake? I mean, it's been 2.5.
2.76.
2.76. So we're approaching 3 foot low. Guys, that is as low as this lake has been in years. I mean, it's been 4 or 5 years since we've hit 3 foot low. And we were 4 foot low, I think it was about 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, we were about 4 foot low over the winter. But since then, we have not been this low. So that's going to affect the way things fish, and it's going to affect it even more because the grass growth has not been the best in Lake Fork this year. And the vast majority, like 99.999% of the grass has been pretty shallow. Well, as this lake has dropped, it's taken a lot of that grass out of play, and now the grass growth that we have is extremely shallow. Well, as this water cools off to 60 degrees and below, that grass is going to die down in that extremely shallow water. That 1 foot of water or less, that grass is going to die back. It's going to fade away. The top's already getting knocked off of them, and it's going to completely go away here pretty soon. And what that's going to do is leave almost no grass in the lake over this winter unless the lake fills up before the water cools off more. If we have a late fall warm-up and the water rises up with some rain, we could get a little more grass growth to hold some grass in there over the winter. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Right now, it looks like we're going to go through winter with almost no grass in the lake. You got a low lake. That's going to draw fish back. That's going to condense fish in a smaller. You got a lot less surface area, a lot less water volume when you drop the lake a few feet. That's going to condense fish. It's also going to pull them back off the bank. You got no grass. That's going to pull them off the bank. So what type of areas do we need to start concentrating on from fall to winter transition and even throughout the winter? Well, from fall to winter transition, we talk about this a lot. When fish move, we look for stop signs, transition points. Two of the best things that you can find. Number one, my favorite, is going to be funnel points or pinch points. Whenever you've got fish that have been in the back of a creek and there's something that makes that creek get narrow, just the way the land lays, that creek's this wide up here and then it squeezes together down here for a little while. That little area in there where it pinches down, as those fish move in and out of that creek, that's going to be a natural funneling point. It's going to put a higher number of fish in a smaller area. It's going to improve your odds of getting some bites in those type of areas. I love fishing those type of areas during transitional times of year. The other thing is going to be two things, creek channel swings and points. And when you have a creek channel swing combined with a point, whether it's a secondary point in a creek or all the way out by the main lake, that's going to be a stop sign for those fish to stay on for a little bit as they move in and out of these creeks. Do you have any transitional hot spots, or is that pretty much what you do, or what?
Yeah, no, so you know me, I love road beds, ledges, and all that kind of stuff. I am actually starting to see more fish up on these road beds, deeper road beds.
Mm-hmm.
Not just shallow spots, but 10, 15 foot.
Kind of some mid-depth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Starting to see them pull up on that. Of course, your brush piles. And I'm still seeing them around docks, too. You know, the main thing about this time of year is you're going to be doing a lot of graphing. And you have to be patient. But, you know, once it starts getting even colder, once you find them fish, they're not going to move so much.
Right.
So once you find them, you got them.
Yeah, this is kind of the last movement for a little while, right? So tracking those fish right now, staying with them can be very important to you if you like to fish throughout the winter. And I know a lot of guys don't fish throughout the winter, but for those of us that do, man, it's one of the best times of year to fish because a lot of guys don't fish throughout the winter, and because of what Cody just alluded to, those fish stay still. They stay still, man. They kind of get in an area and they kind of make a home for the winter. Now, one thing I got to tell you that we got to talk about is in the wintertime, you know, you've got two extreme times a year. You've got the wintertime when it's extremely cold. You got summertime when it's extremely hot. When the summertime, lack of oxygen in the water, lower oxygen content, and thermocline can take a big part of the lake away from you. It can eliminate a lot of water for you. You know, if you got a thermocline at 20 feet, well, we just don't fish below 20 feet. Well, that eliminates a lot of stuff. But in the wintertime, the oxygen is distributed very, very evenly throughout the water column. And so any depth can come into play. I have caught fish as deep as 40 feet on Lake Fork. It's hard to find 40 foot of water on Lake Fork to some degree. You know, and I have actually caught fish in 40 foot of water on Lake Fork, but in the middle of winter. It's not what we're going to be doing right now in this fall to winter transition, but as you go forward throughout winter, it's just something to think about. Don't eliminate any depth. Those fish can get as deep as they want in the wintertime. The oxygen content's the same. And if it gets extremely cold and the water temps get down to 40 or below, which is rare around here, I've only seen it a couple times. We've had 39, 38 degree water. But if it gets down there to the lower 40s, boy, those fish can really, really go deep in the wintertime. So we'll talk about that more later in the winter, but that's something to keep in mind going forward. Even for the fall, some of these road beds we're talking about, right now we're kind of talking about fish moving from the creek, the backs of creeks, mid creeks, out to the mouth. So those road beds that we're targeting right now and those creek arms and stuff aren't going to be as deep. But here in just another week or two, we'll be talking about main lake stuff. And some of those road beds will be in 20, 25, 30 foot of water. Some of those pond dams, some of those humps, some of those flat spots will be as deep as 20 to 30 foot of water. And you're really going to have to open your mind and think, man, I really got to graph everything. And like Cody said, you're going to spend a lot of time on your electronics.
Yeah. Probably, upwards of half a day.
At times, yeah. But the good news is if you do that, it can be a frustrating time of year to fish looking for them on your electronics like that. But the good thing is when you find them, you can find a big, big group of them. These fish it's not like the summer to fall transition where they get all scattered out from the turnover and then you got to kind of wait on them to get back together, pick off one here, one there, little groups here and there. This deal is a situation where it's like, to me it seems like in the fall to winter, they all got gathered in the fall, they all fed on shad, and then when they push back out, they kind of push back out together. So even as they move back out to the main lake or wherever they're going to end up for the winter, the groups tend to still be intact. And you can find huge groups, huge schools of fish, on a point, on a roadbed, on whatever you find them on, where that transition, a creek swing, any kind of transitional stop sign where you do find them, you can still find huge groups of fish even as they're moving back out to the main lake. As far as baits go, like how to catch them, man, to me, one of the very best baits, and this is like the best time of year for it, but just straight tail worms. Like the finesse stuff, straight tail. And y'all know I'm not a finesse fisherman, but this is the time of year.
Texas root?
I prefer a shaky head. I really like shaky head, or even a drop shot. A shaky head and a drop shot, this time of year is a time of year when I will have both of those tied on my boat every day that I go out on Lake Fork. That straight tail worm is just a very, very deadly technique. As this water is cooling, these temperatures are dropping, their metabolism slowing down, they're getting more finicky about how they eat. Man, that straight tail worm can play a really key factor.
Yeah, and like you're talking about these fish with the fall to winter transition, you're going to tend to not catch as small a fish either in this transition. When they start getting cold, their metabolism, the smaller fish don't have to eat near as much as the bigger fish. So that's why you're going to tend to catch nicer fish during this time and into the winter time. Plus, they're pregnant.
Yeah.
They're already pregnant.
That's the deal. They're already pregnant, and they're getting more pregnant by the day. And if you ever had a pregnant woman in your house, they eat. Like, they're going to eat.
That's just some weird things.
That's just part of it, man. They're going to eat, and they're going to eat a bunch, and they're going to eat often. And that is the deal. We've talked about that in years past. Over the winter time, and it's starting right now, those male bass, they can go however long they need to without eating. They really don't have to eat much at all in the wintertime. But those female bass, even though their metabolism slows down, they got to bite. They got to feed. And so that's why we do see such a higher percentage of your fish catches being bigger fish.
But, you know, main thing is don't get discouraged this time of year because you're going to have rough days. Man,
and the other thing that's so deadly, you know, two baits that are really, really deadly and have been for years now in the fall and winter is Alabama rig and a jerkbait.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama rig and a jerkbait are just staples in the fall and winter everywhere you go across this country. It's no exception here. I mean, they will bite. I mean, I'm telling you, in the fall and even in the winter, if you've got a group of fish, like if you've got a little group of fish, 3 or 4 or 5 bass, and you run an Alabama rig through them, it almost feels like they can't not bite it. Like they have to bite it. It just, there's something in that Alabama rig that fires their instincts when they're in a group. They just can't help it. And this time of year in the fall, the only thing that's on their mind is getting comfortable temperature-wise and eating. You know, fall to winter transition, they're still going to eat. They're going to eat whatever they can right now before it gets cold. And those females, as Cody just said, are going to eat all throughout the winter because they have to. And so the only thing that's on their mind is surviving, you know, getting comfortable temperature-wise and eating something. And that Alabama rig is just, I mean, it's a school of bait coming through there that they just seem to not be able to resist this time of year. Yeah. You throw an Alabama rig much?
I have started to a lot.
Yeah.
In the past, no, I haven't, but I really enjoy throwing it. You know, one thing I learned from you is, you know, whenever you're putting your baits on the Alabama rig, I believe it was you who told me this, put an off color in it. One off color, and that'll make a big difference. But, you know, another thing that Billy's always said that I take to heart is in the wintertime, fall to winter transition, whenever, if you think you're going slow enough, go slower.
Yeah.
He always says that.
Yep.
And that is the
Go
truth.
as slow as you can stand to go, then fish about half that speed.
So probably fish it on a slower ratio reel.
I mean, you can, honestly, now with live sonar, you can kind of see how fast it's going. That helps you realize how slow you need to go. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't realize how fast that Alabama rig's moving when you're reeling it. And a lot of times you don't realize how high in the water column you're keeping it. Right. That, to me, and we're about to talk about live sonar here, but to me, the thing that we can talk about seeing fish eat your bait on the screen and all the different things that live sonar can do. The best thing about live sonar to me is bait awareness. Patrick Walters uses that term. Bait awareness. I know exactly where my bait is in relationship to the depth of those fish. I know exactly where my bait is in relationship to that tree. I can now take an Alabama rig and run it right over top of a brush pile, dude. And like, run it down a foot off the bottom, get to the brush pile, pick it up, lift it over, let it fall right down the other side. Like, yeah. I mean, you may make a mistake learning how to do that along the way, and you may hang one up, but I mean, you can do it. once you learn how to be good enough with controlling your bait and having the bait awareness, knowing how fast you can climb and how fast you can fall, like when you come dialed in with that, you can do all that with live sonar. And in a situation where the water temps start cooling off, we all know the colder the water temps get, we refer to it as a bite window, where in the summertime when fish's metabolism's all jacked up, they may go from here to the door, front door, to go get you bait. But the colder it gets, the tighter that bite window gets. And so it becomes that much more important for you to put that bait
In their face.
right in their face. And as I grow and experiment with this live sonar stuff, I'm telling you, the thing that is the most shocking to me, or not shocking, but the thing I find the most value in is when my bait's down there. Even like there's times, especially when the wind's blowing, you'll see your bait for a second, but you'll lose it. But you'll see that fish for a second, but you'll lose it. At least I know what depth my bait's at and what depth that fish is at. So if that fish is sitting at 10 foot, I can wait till my A-rig gets to 10 foot down, and then I can hold my boat into the wind and know my bait's at 10 foot. And because I've been watching it so much over the weeks, I know exactly how fast I have to reel it to keep it constant, or drop it, or raise it. And you just got to pay attention to all those little details. But that's one of the things that makes live sonar so effective. One of the things, to me, in this time of year going forward that makes live sonar so effective is something Cody said earlier. They sit still. These fish, the colder it gets, they don't move. You know, like in the summertime, it's kind of hard to fish live sonar at times because you'll see a fish one second he's here and the next second he's in another county. Like they just shoot. It's irritating as hell. You're like, there he is, and by the time your bait hits the water, he's over there. You know what I mean? So it's frustrating sometimes, especially trying to target an individual fish. In the wintertime, once it gets down to the 60 degrees and lower, you can target one fish. Now, if I see one fish sitting on the tree, I can run my A-rig or my jerkbait right by it and watch how he reacts. If he runs away from it, doesn't react right, we just move on to the next one, right? So that's something you got to do too.
Hey, you were saying you like drop shot and shaky head. You use why don't you use Carolina rig much?
You can. I'm gonna tell you, if I'm using a Carolina rig, I'm gonna put a Cinco on it.
Right.
Straight tail worm, dude.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Straight tail worms are the deal in the fall, like the late fall, like this fall to winter transition and into the winter. The straight tail worm is the deal if you're gonna drag baits.
And I would use the new 6 cents Divine Shaky Head. Was it 9.5? That's what I'm gonna be throwing this weekend.
Oh, you gonna throw the big one?
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't really do that in the fall. That's interesting. For me, in the fall, I actually go true finesse. I go a 6-inch straight tail worm, maybe a 7-inch, but usually a 6-inch straight tail worm on a 1/4-ounce shaky head, or I'm throwing that same 6-inch straight tail worm on a drop shot. And an argument can be made, honestly, really, you need to go down to like the Zoom finesse worm, the 4-inch worms.
Mm-hmm.
Is really what you need to be throwing on a drop shot over the 6-inch. But on a shaky head, that 6-inch seems to work really well. I say I have both tied on. I still don't throw the drop shot or use the drop shot or keep it ready to go near as much as I should. I just have a lot of faith and confidence in shaky head. Mm-hmm. So I'll have a 1/4-ounce shaky head with a 6-inch straight tail worm tied on every day right now. And this is the time of year to me when it shines the absolute most.
So I love the big bait. I mean, I throw the 4 3/4-inch Zoom on my drop shot, but the big bait to me is like he was talking about. You know, the metabolism. They're not going to work as much to eat. So if you put that big bait in front of their face, I mean, they're going to eat it because that's a big prize with little work. Mm-hmm. You know,
and that's what this game's all about. It is finding things that work for you that you have confidence in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because Cody wants to throw the bigger one and I want to throw a smaller one doesn't make either one of us wrong. I mean, me and David Oatie will sit up here all the time and go back and forth about line sizes and bait sizes, and we do it two completely different ways. But at the end of the day, like when me and David have fished against each other, where we actually counted our fish and measured them, and you know, like the little guide tournament type deals we do at the 22 kill deal. Me and David have been tit for tat, 1 and 2, 2 and 3. I mean, that's where we've been the last couple of years. So we do it completely opposite ways. We go to the same areas, fish completely different, and we end up with the same deal, because in this game, a lot of it has to do with what you're confident in.
Yeah.
Like your confidence and you believing in something means so much.
That's it.
And that's, like I said, that's another thing that live sonar can do. Another, besides bait awareness, depth awareness, cover awareness, all that we talked about with live sonar. Hey, here's what it can do for you: give you confidence on what you're throwing.
Yeah.
Because if you throw an Alabama rig out there and that fish turns around and runs away from it, but you throw a jerkbait out there and that fish comes and pings up on it, Now you're going to throw that jerkbait with confidence.
You're back. Oh, I
Or
know
if they
which one.
ignore both of those and you throw a shaky head out there, that fish follows it to the bottom and noses on it, you're going to have confidence in that shaky head. You're going to be able to roll through different baits and see which baits the fish are reacting to positively or negatively, and it's going to give you confidence in whatever you're fishing. And I've heard a lot of different guys try to explain, fishing with confidence. Professional level guys, the very best in the world. Heard all of them try to explain it. And it all boils down to this. Every single one of them will tell you how important it is to be confident in what you're fishing and how much of a difference fishing with confidence makes. They'll all say the same thing when it comes to that. None of them have a clear answer on why it's so important.
That's Seth Fighter,
Like-
an angler of the year.
None of them have a clear answer on why it is so important to be confident. But it is. And the only thing that I can think of that makes any sense to me is just if I'm fishing a yellow magic, right? Just a topwater bait we all fish, right? If I'm fishing that and I'm fishing it and I'm not confident in it, I'm going to pop it, pop, 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 and maybe I'm going too fast, right? Or maybe I fish it halfway back to the boat and I reel it in and make another cast. And I'm not going to fish it as thoroughly. I'm not going to make sure it's twitching just this way or twitching just that way. Whereas Zell Rowland, who's the best pawpaw fisher of all time, he's going to twitch that thing all the way to the boat, and he's going to catch some fish that I'm not going to catch because of the way he works the bait, how slow he works the bait, his variance in his cadence till he finds the bite because he's confident in it. Or if Jimmy Houston's got a spinner bait, he might let it get to the bottom and yo-yo it off the bottom and start getting bites because he's confident in that spinner bait, whereas I'm going to throw it in there, reel it in, and I'm going to lose confidence. I'm not going to throw it anymore. So the way that you present a bait to a fish changes, to me, dramatically when you feel confident. Like, if I pick up a jig and I throw that jig in a creek channel and I've been throwing it for 3 hours and I'm not getting bit, I'm probably going to be rushing that jig through that creek channel at that point. But if I pick up a jig in my first 3 casts in a row, I catch 3 fish, on that 4th cast, I'm going to throw that jig and I'm going to drag it through that creek channel and I'm going to pick apart every root in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the confidence deal just changes the way you present the bait to the fish, in my opinion. I think that's why confidence is so important. Because we all know. I mean, raise your hand if you don't know this. We all realize there's hundreds of fish that look at your bait every day that don't bite it. Are we all aware of that?
Live Sonar shows you.
Yeah, Live Sonar will show you that. There's a lot of fish that see your bait every day that don't bite it. And a little tiny subtle difference in the way you present the bait can make 10 more fish bite a day, 20 more fish bite a day. And that's where confidence comes in.
You know, there's proof in of how you work it. And I started guiding this year. So I've noticed this already this year. But there's 2 people that'll be in my boat that will always catch fish. And that is women, because they have a steadier hand. They're not overly aggressive.
Usually go slower
They go slower. And somebody that's never fished before.
because they'll listen to you.
And me.
And Vic.
Because, man, one lucky 11 pounder. One lucky 11 pounder.
I catch all the fish.
Never hear the end of this.
Hashtag net man right here.
That's right.
Net
On
man,
video now. It's out there in the.
greatest net man. ever.
All I'm saying is we wouldn't have been there if I didn't find that rent. I'm just saying.
I agree.
You gotta have the net man.
Hey, being the world's greatest net man
It's not a bad
is
thing.
not a bad thing for a dude that's a fishing guide. I'm just telling you.
No,
Like, if
no,
you're
that's
netting big fish all the time, that's a good trait.
Excellent job.
That's a
That's
good
right.
thing.
It's a
You
good
know,
trait.
I'm not saying I don't catch fish, but they say the ones who can't, what do they do?
You're a late
Teach.
partner.
They teach.
That's right.
No, but no, somebody's never fished. They will outfish the guy that booked the
Yeah.
trip with me, and it's because they don't know what they're doing, as far as that part.
There's so much truth to that. In my first day as a full-time guide, I had a woman catch a 10.3 on a whopper flopper. And you know why she caught that 10.3? Because I handed her husband a frog that morning, and he caught a few on a frog, like a couple 4 and 5 pounders, like he was doing good.
Yeah.
And I picked that whopper flopper up and threw it out there, and these fish started chasing it down, waking behind it, and I was reeling it away from them. And I went, dude, they're on this whopper flopper. You want to throw it? He's like, nah, man, I think I'm going to stick with this frog.
And she was like, okay.
I go, Miss Jamie, you want to throw this? Her name was
That's interesting.
yeah, her name was Jamie. I said, you want to throw this water plopper? She goes, yeah, I'll throw it. And so I showed her exactly how fast I was reeling it in. I said, if they start waking behind it, just keep reeling it. Don't speed it up. Don't slow it down. Just keep going. Okay. She had that thing for 10 minutes, caught a 10.3. And went on that day later to hook 2 more over 8 pounds and jumped them off because she didn't know how to fight them. But hooked and got the bite of 2 more fish over 8 and caught several 3 to 4 5 pounders. So she got on the water plopper deal and just ran with it. And I think she hadn't stopped throwing the water plopper since, I don't think. But I know, I talked to, they came and fished me like a year later, and a year later, they fished me several times. And he told me, he's like, dude, that's all she'll throw.
It works.
She's just throwing a water plopper. She said, we'll be on, they live over by Hubbard. It's like, we'll be on Hubbard at the middle lake. She's
30 foot of water.
throwing water. Yep. No, but you know, that was the deal that morning. The husband was confident in the frog. He wanted to throw the frog. The wife didn't know any better. She's like, yeah, I'll throw the water plopper. Fish of a lifetime for her. Yeah. There's a lot to that. You know, I've had, everybody's seen the kid, the 13-year-old kid who caught the 12-pounder in my boat.
Yeah.
You know. And that, it was funny is we were fishing that morning, and I had that kid throwing a wacky worm trying to get him on some bites because he's a kid. And this kid fishes a lot. Like, I got to give that kid some credit. He fishes a ton. He's like, hey, can I throw that big swim bait? I'm like, yeah, you can throw a big swim bait. I go, you know what you're doing? He goes, yeah. Like, he throws big swim baits in his ponds back home and stuff, you know, on his kayak and all that stuff. So he picks up a big swim bait and catches fish of a lifetime, you know, almost the junior state record. But that was another case where that kid just had the faith and confidence to throw that swim bait, and he threw it and was reeling at the right speed. And anybody else throw that swim bait that wasn't confident, they probably fished it too fast and don't get that bite. It means a lot. So live sonar, I really want to break this down. So this is the time of year. I mean, everybody saw what happened last year to HIV in the wintertime, and we saw Patrick Walters last November, about exactly a year ago to about right now, I think it was, catching those fish suspended in timber and all that. And this is, I've really noticed the last couple weeks since we've had the last seminar that we're getting those fish pulling out, and they're getting on Main Lake timber. Like, in fact, that area where Patrick Walters caught most of his fish last year, which is right around the corner from here, it's loaded with fish. I mean, absolutely loaded with fish right now. He can come back out here and do the same thing again. I guarantee you. They're sitting in there waiting on him.
Just him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the only one that can do it to that level because that's how good he is. But we could all go do it. Bridges are getting fish on bridge pilings. They can catch some big fish on bridge pilings with these, especially the bridges that are in creek arms.
Skirting.
You know, the bridge aprons.
Mustang Bridge gets hammered daily. I see
Yeah,
it.
the bridge aprons and pilings that are in these creek arms, they've all got fish on them right now. Every creek arm bridge out here, whether it's Running Creek, Coffee Creek, Mustangs, Williams, those 3 right here, Birch, all these bridges in the creek arms. And what's going to happen is when some of those numbers start to fade and we get in December, the Main Lake bridges will have them on them. You know, there's going to be some fish hanging around there eating shad and eating crappie. Big fish now are going to hang around and eat shad and eat crappie off those cross members of those bridge pilings for months going forward. It's a very little used pattern. I think with live sonar now, it's a lot easier to do it because it's always been hard to do what? Keep your bait at the right depth to be right in front of those pilings. But now with live sonar, what can we do? We can see exactly where our bait is staying as far as being parallel to those pilings. And I think if, you know, Jack York is another guide out here, very good young guide. And he's the best at live sonar when it comes to guiding out here, hands down. But the more guys that get good at it, if guys will dedicate themselves to that cross-member bridge piling bite over the winter, there's no telling what size of bass you're liable to see get caught out of here. Because some of the biggest fish in the lake hang around those bridge pilings in the wintertime eating crappie. And they don't slip up very often because they're keyed into eating live crappie. But every once in a while, one of them real giants might slip up, and you never know what you're going to get. And you hook them on a big rod with an Alabama rig, you're going to catch them. Like, they're not getting off. They're in open water. You get 5 hooks, might hook them, you know, like you will catch them. So,
And if you're J-Bo, you'll catch a 60-pound out.
yeah, catfish, that's right. But it's there to be had. That pattern's really there to be had with this live sonar. As far as how to use it, it's pretty self-explanatory, man. It's the only thing that I can tell you is the more time you spend looking at it, the more time you spend time looking at it and just keeping your bait on the screen. The more you can keep your bait on the screen in the wind and everything else, the easier you'll also be able to keep a piling on the screen or a fish on the screen. And these, timber that stands up out of the water and bridge pilings are both really good to get around on your live sonar to learn how to use it, because it gives you a fixed target. You know where that target is. And now you can work on keeping your transducer pointed right at that target and throw your bait beside that target, and you can watch your bait. And now you try to keep that transducer line, and that's going to help you hone in on where your transducer is aiming, because there's a real art to keeping your transducer lined up on a target. And then once you learn how to do that on something you can see visibly out of the water, you'll be able to skate around and see something under the water, and you'll be better at keeping it on that target. And then you can throw your bait to that target, and you can keep it on there and climb your bait right over it and drop down it. In fact, I fished a tournament on Lake Belton, which is a lake unlike any I've ever been to. I had my boat in 70 foot of water and was throwing at the bank. Don't understand that. That's very foreign to a guy like me.
Pretty deep.
But the first thing that morning, we're up there throwing at a little creek channel swing bank up there, and I'm scanning around. I see on live target, I see some wood out off the bank, some standing timber that's well below the surface, and it's in about 25, 30 foot of water, and the timber's sticking up 15 feet or whatever it is. And I throw my A-rig out there, and I watch my A-rig fall down, and I can see fish on this timber. I throw my A-rig down there, watch it fall behind the timber. Bring my A-rig up to the timber. You'll see me in the video lift my rod, and I go, oh, he kind of followed it. And I climb my bait over the timber. As soon as it clears it, drop my bait back down, go back to reeling it, caught it. That's within the first 5 minutes I'm on a lake I've never been to, catch a keeper right off the bat in a tournament. I mean, it's...
And I'm jealous, by the way. Smallmouth fish. Man,
we weighed in a limit of fish. 4 out of the 5 were smallmouth.
That is awesome.
They didn't. And here's the deal. So I'm in the boat. I've never seen any lakes that are anything like Lake Belton in my life. Justin Royal's in the boat. He's never caught a smallmouth, and he's never fished a tournament in his life. And we went out there and weighed in a limit of fish, and we didn't do very well. We got like 51st out of like 157 boats, but we went on a lake with no practice and just showed up and weighed in a limit. I was kind of proud of that. And to do it on smallmouth. Y'all know I never catch smallmouth. Justin's never caught a smallmouth, so it was at least we went out and got a limit. But what else y'all want to talk about on live sonar? Any questions about live sonar? I know there's got to be some live sonar questions.
My buddy just put, so that was his neighbor, all right? And so I guess it's cornfield electronic fishing equipment. You ever heard of them?
Mm-mm.
So in other words, so he put it's an electric pole that goes down next to your trolling motor, and it's got a fob or a little deal in it, so it just turns. You can turn it any way you want.
A transducer mount?
Yes.
Okay.
It's brand new, and he just put it on last week, and I haven't got to talk to him about how well he lives over here in Tenson Point, and so I'm curious to see how he liked. But it was really slick. I'm telling you, I was looking at it, and I'm going, now that's the way to go right there.
Yeah.
Like a power pole fob?
Well, it's right there. It'd be right next to you. Just mounted it. He mounted it on the deck next to his trolling motor. It's a stainless rod that goes down, but it's motor driven.
Yeah. So that would be, man, that is a give and take on that mounting. So at first I was like, it's got to be mounted separate. And then I kept breaking mounts, and I just had it on now that I've had it on my trolling motor shaft for a while, I can see the advantage. There is advantages to having it on the trolling motor shaft, for sure. There is advantages to having it separate. It is a give and take. If you're spot locked, if you're going to be spot locked, it's great to have it mounted separate, obviously. Like, if you're just going to fish in one spot offshore, Patrick Walters mentioned this to me, and I found, of course, he was right. I found what he said to be true. Man, most of the time you're moving and chasing these fish down. Most of the time you're not sitting still.
Right.
That's just the reality of it. When you're trying to live scope fish, you're moving from one tree to the next. You're looking at this tree, looking at that tree. You're scanning around, looking at everything, going from bridge piling to bridge piling to bridge piling, whatever you're doing. You're moving most of the time when you're looking for these fish. And all that's going to do is give me something else that I have to be in control of. And it's going to make it more of a challenge. And now, if I see one at the last, like if I'm going my trolling motor and I see one, I can't just fire over there real quick because I'm moving this, and I only got one hand. And I can't fish with just one hand.
I see.
So I need it to be hands free. And then I see guys that have got, foot control ones mounted. I'm like, well, maybe, but then now which foot do I balance on? Because I'm using both feet. Well, I can't do that. Yeah. I'll end up going and turning my whole thing, trolling motor or whatever. Most of the time you're on the move, and it's better to have it on the trolling motor shaft because I can control my transducer and my boat and maybe I'll lose the picture for a second to straighten my boat out, but then I'm back on it. You know, and the harder the wind blows, the more of a challenge that is. There's days when it's real windy when I wish it was mounted separate. There's days when it gets so windy where I'm like, you know what, we're just not going to live sonar fish today, not unless we can power pole down somewhere, and then I can use it. And then I wish it was mounted separate because I could spotlight, power pole around, or live scope around, move to the next spot, spotlight, live scope around, and that would be the way to do it. So there are situations where having it mounted separate is an advantage, but most of the time, day in, day out, when I'm moving around looking for fish on live sonar, it's going to be a disadvantage to have to control something else.
Yeah, and I think he said it was like $500.
Yeah.
That's not cheap.
I've had it both ways.
Nothing with it is.
No.
And so I had when I first bought the Lowrance, I had it on my trolling motor shaft. Then I bought the attachment, and when I sold the Lowrance Active Target and got my Garmin, I just put it back on the trolling motor shaft, and I do not miss that thing because it's in the way. And like you said, I hardly ever really used it. I mean, it's just a pain in the butt. So I mean, you know, if you're in the wind and you've already found the group of fish, you know, if they're on the bottom, you know, it's a little different. You know, you can scan to them, just make sure they're still there. I don't really watch my bait a whole lot. Now in the wintertime I'm going to. Yeah. But I just make sure they're there because once you come up on a school and you're using your live sonar and you see they're there, you know, a lot of times you'll catch 2 or 3 fish and then they're gone. You think they're gone. Well, you use that live sonar, you just get off spot lock. They just moved up 50 foot.
Yeah.
You know, so you just scoot up.
And the other thing too is for us as guides, the reality is with live sonar, once we locate the fish, we're not really watching the catching going on. It's more like if I got 2 guys in my boat and we're going along, I'm like, oh, there's some on that tree right over there. Hey, you guys throw right over here. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a while I may catch a glimpse of their bait and go, stop it, pause it, shake it, whatever. But for the most part, I'm going, okay, there's fish over here in this stand of timber. There's fish in this brush pile. We're going to sit here and throw right there. And I'm not even looking at live sonar anymore. I'm just telling them we're throwing right over there. You know, it's really just locating
Odds
things.
in your favor.
Now, when I'm fishing it for myself, I'm watching my bait when I can. When I can, you know, sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult. It's not easy to do. And you know, we did a really in-depth conversation with Patrick not too long ago, and he was talking about fishing for smallmouth with, you know, up north, big smallmouth lakes. What's that river up there that was fished? St. John's?
Yeah.
Whatever the big, I don't know. Maybe that's the
St.
Florida
Lawrence.
River. St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence, I'm sorry.
St. John's is the one in Florida. They start the year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Maybe he was talking about fishing those fisheries up there. They got these big boulders and things like that. These small. He goes, man. He goes. I think, you know, he kind of alluded to. I don't see every fish I catch on my live sonar when I'm using it. I'm not seeing everything on live scope. Like I'm not just driving around till I mark a fish. He goes, I mark objects. Like I see a boulder and I throw a bait to it, and most of the time I don't even see a fish, but I throw a bait over there, then all of a sudden the fish come off the boulder. Mm-hmm. You know, or they come to the boulder, whatever it is. He goes, well, most of the time I am literally just finding targets, finding objects to throw at with my live sonar, and then throwing my bait over there, making sure, bait awareness, that I'm hitting my target, right depth, right location, right distance, making sure I'm making the best cast I can every time to those targets. He goes, I don't see the majority of the fish I catch using live sonar on my live sonar. It's not just what everybody thinks it is. That's the big thing I want to talk to you guys about tonight is, yes, in the wintertime they'll sit still. The Alabama rig's awesome because Alabama looks like it's this big coming across your live sonar screen, so you can see it. And like when a fish gets behind it and it's the same size as your Alabama rig, and you start computing that in your head, well, an Alabama rig's this tall, right? Mm-hmm. That means that fish is now this tall. It's not a little fish. That's not, you know, a 10-inch, 12-inch tall fish. That's a big, big fish. So when you see a blob that's the same size as your A-rig, you're like, oh, snap. Like, it's a giant. A lot of times you got this big blob of A-rig and you got a little dot right behind it. So you never know. But that's a misconception that I wanted to get out tonight was you're not seeing all your catches on there. Yes, you can mark fish. More importantly, you can mark targets where you want to fish at. Like if you're seeing a lot of fish in an area and you see a brush pile, let's fish that brush pile, dude. Because you might not see every fish that's sitting in that brush pile. You know? And so many times with this live sonar, you'll be looking at a brush pile and there's nothing there, then you'll see a fish swim into it, a fish swim out of it. Mm-hmm. Well, they're in there. You're just not seeing them all the time.
Are you changing your transducer angles a lot, or are you just leaving it?
No, I'm be honest with you, I don't experiment with it at all. What do they call
Mounted vertical?
Scout.
Like
The 3-in-1.
what do they call it when you turn it sideways? What's that mode?
perspective?
Perspective mode. I don't ever do that.
So you have it mounted
In the forward
Vertically?
mode.
I've got it mounted in the
That's
straight up
forward mode?
Yeah.
Okay.
Forward.
I haven't had much experience.
Yeah,
at all
yeah, I
with
don't do
so
it
I've
now.
heard about it. But
I don't do it straight down, but there is a couple situations in the wintertime where I may just turn it straight down. Like if I go to vertical jig and spoon and fish, we will do that sometimes in the winter. Like I've done that old school on 2D Sonar where we'll be looking at fish straight under the boat in 25 foot of water, and we'll be dropping jig and spoons right to them and hopping jig and spoons over their heads, you know. If I'm doing that, then yes, I will turn it because it's easy to just go click it down and then tighten your screw up. That's all you got to do. But I'm not taking the time to turn it sideways and do perspective mode. Because even in shallow water, I can see fish in shallow water on forward mode in like 2 foot of water. No problem. I've caught plenty of fish this year in 2 foot of water using live sonar.
so would perspective have a wider angle?
Perspective is going to be, you won't be able to tell the depth of the fish at all,
Right.
but you'd have a wide angle and you'd be able to see the dot moving across your screen like
I'll
that.
give you an example. I was fishing a bridge, submerged bridge, months and months back, and I put it on perspective mode because I don't have 360 yet. They're hard to find right now.
Hard to get, yeah.
So I put it on perspective mode. That way, I didn't have to throw the buoys out
Yeah.
to mark the bridge for my customers. Because I would throw a buoy out on this corner of this end and this corner of this end, and they can visualize the highway. Throw it right through there. You know what I mean? But I turn it on perspective mode, and we're facing this bridge, and there's no fish. I don't see no fish swimming. Throw that big old 5/8 shaky head up there with a big perm on it, and as soon as they start dragging it across, it made like 2 or 3 little ticks. I'm telling you, them fish come out from underneath that dang bridge. It was wild.
I remember you telling me about that.
It was
Yeah,
wild.
I remember.
So I mean, and you can see that whole bridge with the perspective mode. You know, like
And basically, what perspective mode does is it gives you a partial. It gives you the same view of 360 does, but it only gives you a partial view of it. But it's live. You can see them swimming.
Yeah.
You can see the little dot move across the screen. So my question is, when are we gonna get a live 360? Because when that dude comes out, that joker's gonna be like, if you give me live 360 and vertical live scope, oh man, now I can see everything.
That would be awesome.
Like everything. Because now, when I'm over here busy looking forward to these fish, my live 360 would show me something swimming back here. And I'd just be like, zoop. Feel we'd be fishing over our backs, you know, casting this way. You ever seen that old Bill Dance clip? Where he's filming one of his shows with one of his grandkids, I think it is. And they're just in some pond just whacking them. I don't remember what the kid's name was. He's like, hey, so-and-so, you know how you know when you're professional level? You know when you're real good? Is when you can do it like this. And reels in that crankbait and catches one over the shoulder because they were catching 800 fish out of a pond, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty funny. That'll be us when we get live 360 and live scope going together. And they show up behind us. We'll just be like, watch our bait.
Yep. But like he was saying, you won't see every fish. I have a good example of that. This year on Athens, during the brim spawn, I graphed some brim beds with my side scan. Wasn't no fish. I was like, well, I'm still going to stop and I'm going to throw one and I'm going to fish it. I had my active target, which is Lowrance version, and I'm sitting there scanning. There was no fish, but I throw that sea rig out there, and I'm telling you, boom. I caught that fish. It was 25 and a half inches long, 9 pounds. It was poor fish for that big of a body.
Skinny, yeah.
But I didn't see that fish. I don't know if it's like, I know you've probably seen it with your live scope. You'll be scanning down, all you'll see is bottom, and all of a sudden a catfish will shoot up off the bottom because they're blending in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if they get tight to cover, they're hard to see. And Athens has got a lot of grass too. And when they get in grass, I mean, they can be right there and you won't see them.
yeah.
So why did you switch from Lowrance to Garmin? The active target to the live.
I just wanted to try it. I never had the live scope.
Wait, do you have live scope now?
Mhm.
Yep. I didn't know that.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
So everybody kept talking about how it's so much better. And I talked to people that had the Lowrance and had the Garmin. So I'm the type of person I want to see for myself.
What's better? Inquiring minds want to know which one's better.
Yeah.
Garmin.
Why?
It is a clearer picture, and I don't know. You have to get on my boat and look at it, but it is a clearer picture, and you can actually see further with it than you can the Lowrance.
Did you have them both powered the same way?
I did. I had the same harness in there. I ran my own harness on my own battery, but I got the 12-inch Garmin, and I can tell the difference.
Did you have a 12-inch Lowrance or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had the HDS Live.
Yeah, but you have a 12-inch, not a 9 on Lowrance?
Yep. Yeah, they were both 12s. But I do like the Garmin better. I mean, there's not much of a difference,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a difference either.
There's
And
not.
I like the Lowrance better. I think right out of the box, like before you adjust anything, the picture on the Lowrance is better.
oh yeah, for sure.
It's a clearer picture when you get in there, and the adjustments on it are just so simple. I think I made the mistake for a while, and from everything else I've seen on anything else out there, I think a lot of people are making the mistake with the Lowrance of not turning up the sensitivity high enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they have the auto sensitivities, and typically on Sonar downscan, you're going to get to, or side scan with Lowrance. If you're a Lowrance user, you're going to run it on auto to maybe auto plus 2 or 3, maybe auto plus 4. And it's about as high as you're going to get on your sensitivity on Lowrance. But on the active target, I run it all the way up a lot of times on auto plus 12. I don't think people are tuning that thing up high enough to really see everything you're wanting to see out there. And for me, the images that I've looked at on Garmin's, even Garmin's, the first Garmin I got into the boat with, it wasn't tuned in. But I've been in boats, and that guy actually went and got his worked on after I told him, I was like, dude, this ain't right. So he got his tuned in real well, and I've been in other boats with that Garmin. And for me, I think the picture on Lowrance is a little bit better.
A personal preference, really.
I think it is.
Well, I mean, I like
And
the color.
I'm so familiar with Lowrance's systems,
Yeah.
like their systems and how they work and their adjustments and all that. I've ran every model of graph that Lowrance has had since the HDS series was invented. So I'm very familiar with the operating system on Lowrance, from mapping to waypoints to the graphs communicating with each other and me putting notes in there. Like, I can do whatever I want to with Lowrance. I can change transducer types, anything. I know everything that I need to know about Lowrance. And when I start messing with other graphs, I'm like, well, I know how to move the sensitivity up and down. That's about all I know how to do,
But don't get me wrong. I mean, I have Lowrance on my console, and that's all I've ever is Lowrance. I love
Yeah.
Lowrance as well. But I will say this: when I sell this boat, I'm not taking it off. And when I get the new boat, if Lowrance is in stock and Garmin ain't, or even if both
You
of
can run
them,
either one.
I don't
would
care.
too. I would too. Yeah. We're sitting here talking about this like it's a big. It's the same unit. They
It's
do the
just preferred
same
to the
thing.
screen, more or less.
They do the same thing, and the reality is, you're going to be able to see blobs of, little blobs that are fish moving around on either one of them. You're going to be able to tell that's a tree and that's a brush pile. You're going to be able to see all that on either one of them. On either one of them, you're going to see all that.
Yeah. Lowrance has a better color package. I will say that. I like Lowrance's color schemes better than the Garmin's.
Their
But
palettes or whatever.
Their palettes, yeah. Now, one thing.
That's funny because I think Garmin's got better color.
This is partial proof.
I've seen both of them like at the store and stuff.
Yeah.
They look like
They're
Garmin and Lowrance look really
really
similar.
close.
Really not a huge thing.
Well, from
Really?
what I understand, the people that got left Garmin went to work for Lowrance.
It looks like it.
So, from what I understand, Lowrance Active Target is like Gen 2 live scope.
Yeah. And I think that's why when you get it out of the box, it's a clearer picture. It's just a little bit better technology.
It's like it's already just set at a better.
But the main thing is also is whenever you're running it, you need to try to stay at the same depth out and down. Because if you go to change it a lot, if you're not used to it, your fish are going to look different.
That's true.
So, you need to find something that's a good fit for you.
Don't run it at less than. For sure, don't ever go less than 15 foot, even if you're in 2 foot of water.
Yeah.
Don't go less than 15 foot. I really keep mine at 20 foot most of the time. Last week I had to go deeper. I had to go deeper than that because we were in 70 foot of water at the boat. But we were looking at some fish and over 20 foot of water, so we were down at 30 foot. But I run mine most of the time at 20 foot, and I'll have to run it at 30 foot some over the winter when we're fishing deeper water. But I would never go less than 15 foot because Cody's right. When you get down to that 10 foot range, you'll be spending all day throwing at bait fish. Because individual bait fish will look like bass to you on your screen.
And you're going to think it looks like a big fish, and then all of a sudden you're going to see your bait, and you're like, they're the same size as my bait.
Yeah. Or they're even smaller
Yeah.
than your bait. I mean, you'll literally be out there throwing at shad. Or, a brim that's this long,
Yeah.
I just got the Humminbird Live in and haven't put it on the boat because I'm waiting on the new
You
boat
got-
to come in. And,
You got the live scope Humminbird version.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the Mega 360. But I can tell you, if it's anything as good as that Mega 360, because the more
Oh,
I
that's-
use it, the
I
more,
just-
more you learn
Yeah,
to
I've got
play
it.
with it a little bit.
I've got
I'm not
it. It's-
kidding you.
it's crazy.
Absolutely, I can tell the difference between that sand bath and that's big bath.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I just don't understand how Hummingbird's going to get away with not using the black box. You know, they're using the processor that's in the graph itself for their live image. You know, with Lowrance and Garmin, they got the black
Separate
box
box, yeah.
to help with the feed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to how the Humminbird Live's going to look. Honestly,
I'll tell you, but I'm not gonna take it out of the box and tell you,
Into the new boat.
Sergeant says it'll be there any day. You know how that is. Right
2
now,
months from now.
everything is
it
any
may
day.
be the one I bought today while I was
And
up
that
there.
sounds like
What?
I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, but I'm excited to try to use it.
Yeah.
Question that's really not.
Be ready
this.
to. It's going to take you some time.
Be ready to report to
It's going to take you some time. Just you're going to need to be patient with it at first. It's going to frustrate you at first.
The one idea I like about it is the sole fact you can get you a 15-inch Helix. I say Helix because I hate Solix because they take 9 minutes to power up. But the Helix, and you can run your live scope and your 360, and you can have one big old graph on the front of your boat instead of 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can just switch a view.
So
But you know,
that's
so,
that's where
but
I'm
you
trying
still
to
may
go.
want another one. That way you can still have your 360 and your live. But you know,
I mean,
gives you that opportunity.
That's what I was looking at, was trying to use one unit instead of, it-
Yeah.
when you start trying to take this stuff off the boat, you're gonna leave it in the boathouse, you know the drill. And so,
Yeah, any question, I think?
So for the people, with the conditions that we're probably lining up this winter, are you pretty much saying like shallow fishing is probably not
It's
going to
gonna
be
be tough. Yeah.
there,
For Lake Fork.
Really?
For Lake Fork.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
saying
for Lake
specific
Fork, yeah.
For this, like,
Yeah, I mean, like Lake Athens is full of grass.
Right,
Lake
yeah.
Fairfield's full of grass. Lake of the Pines has got some grass and some areas of the
Exactly.
whole field. You know, a lot of our lakes are going to be good. Lake Albrook's got grass. There'll be shallow fishing all year there, and there'll be some shallow fishing to be had at Lake Fork. Always is. No, grass or no,
Right.
grass or no. There's always some shallow fish you can grind up. But no, I think the wintertime shallow fishing is going to be major downturn this year compared to what it has been in the years past. Now, the first time we get a warming trend in January, they're going to run. Like, there's going to be a group of fish. As soon as we get a 3-day warming trend in January, it's going to run back there. And you can go get after them.
well, luckily my company does a 35% off on Garmin, so I might be looking into that.
There you go. There you go.
I think I saw Jake out there the day before yesterday, so I guess they're still surveying those fish. So I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he
it's him. I
tagged.
saw
So
it, but-
I need to get with him again because he tagged some that they caught offshore this year.
Yeah, I'd like to hear.
So those were more offshore
Yeah, I haven't
born
heard
fish.
anything.
Caught them out there at the mouth of Birds, Heartbreak Ridge. I need to talk to him and get an update on him because he did do some different fish. And he was starting to. They only last a year and then those things fall out of him.
Yeah.
So he was starting to lose some of his old fish, and so he got some new ones. So we need to do a follow up on that. I totally forgot about
How many
that.
more? Do you know how many more he did?
I hadn't talked to him in a long time, honestly. But I know he had 8 or 10 that he had gotten tagged. See, I only did like 20 on the first run on the shallow fish. And he had 8 or 10 that he already had tagged way early in summer, like back in June. So.
You know, you bring up Heartbreak Ridge. We had an upset a couple weekends ago.
Did it break your heart? Did you get your heart broken?
Didn't break
I
mine.
wonder where it got its name from.
It did break a client's heart.
Yeah.
I mean, the fish she come up good fish. I mean, you know, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh man, it was an 11 pounder, it was 10." You know, it was a good 8.
Yeah.
You know, it came up and she started going back down, and man, there is so much crap down there. Oh man, I don't know.
Lived up to its name.
You know, and the person was with me. You know, they're
everybody-
learning, and it's a job in itself of trying to get people to how to work the rod and all that. So, but
Everybody likes to fish there in May and June and all that. Sometimes fishing out there, but I mean, when I started fishing that area out there was in the fall. It gets big fish on it every fall. Every fall. You know, it's just one of them deals. It's like everything else offshore here. They're not there every time you pull up out there. But when they're there, especially in the fall, when they're there, it's like they're all
but
there.
it's so easy to get to. It don't take but just a few minutes to go by.
Oh,
grab
dude,
it, and go back
when I
out.
fish it, I am dang near fishing in the boat lane out there on that deal. Like I'm almost like we're throwing into the boat lane a lot of times. Like we're sitting just off it, throwing in the boat lane a lot of times. It's been different this year. I've been getting. I was fished it further up on it a lot this year because they weren't out in their normal spot. I often wonder if some of those hard spots get silted in, and then this other part's harder, or whatever. Like it's like grass, right? Like this part has grass this year, and the next year, kind of this part of the creek has grass, and that part really doesn't. I think some sweet spots, some hard spots on them offshore deals that are real long like that. I think they change year to year.
So, what are your thoughts on this new lake coming in? What do you think that's going to do for us?
Boat art?
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be? It's going to take a lot of the pressure off of us, not just people, but guides as well.
No,
No.
it's not. Nothing's good. Nothing will ever take away from Lake Fork.
Has anybody got an update on how full
We're,
it is right now?
you know, when it comes to the Lake Fork question about will it take pressure off here, this lake's been here for 40 years. It's had pressure for all of it. He might. How long you been around the lake?
6 years.
How long you been around the lake? 30-something years? You grew up around here. Has this lake ever not gotten pressure even after the fish kill in 2000? I mean, after the from what everybody tells me, now, everybody exaggerates things in the past. It was so much better, it was so much worse, whatever. But like after the fish kill in like 2000, 99, 2000, you talk to any of the guys over here then, they were like, dude, it was like fishing the Dead Sea. Did it lose any pressure during that time? No. Nope. Like nothing is ever going. We are 40 years in, folks. Well, I think it's safe to say we've established that Lake Fork is what it's going to be. It's always going to be full of giant bass. They're always going to be real hard to catch, and they're always going to be fished for per acre harder than any other bass you'll find on any major lake. That's just what it's going to be.
Yep. I was just up at the VA in Bonham this week, and if you think that the thing in Sulphur Springs, what is this, in the middle of the square, whatever the building, the city hall, if you think it's pretty, you got to see the one. They just were putting the final touches on the one they've been working on 2 years in Bonham. Unbelievable. I saw it. I come around the corner and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
When is that lake opening?
People are talking about lines.
I don't know. I know it's starting to
Is it
build.
open?
It's supposed to open
It's
like next
prettier
year.
Is it 22 or 23?
Rogers put some money in.
22? It's like summertime, I think.
I know. I heard that there's been people going out there trespassing, fishing those ponds that they stop, and catching 10-pounders left and
Someone
right.
honked at me because I was
It's not even fair.
Yeah, you've heard that.
I've heard that.
Right.
Two guys up on
But
the very
whether
top putting the
they've
fine
actually
touch.
done it or not.
If it didn't get posted on Facebook, it's not real.
Well, because it's against the law.
And there's another one getting built just south of it, Ralph Hall.
They're doing a good job. So
And they started digging it.
Where is it now?
Just south of it? Yeah, called Ralph Hall.
Smaller lake?
Oh, I did
Little-
see that. They're already building houses out there. I've seen
Smaller
that.
lake?
Yeah, just a little bit smaller, not a whole
that's
lot.
good
but
though.
a little
It's
bit.
helping young people.
I
I mean, I'm glad. Listen, there's some really good fisheries up there. The deal is, that lake is going to be
Them people-
like every other lake, like most of the lakes. So what's kind of that lake is, it's going to be dependent on grass. Cooper. When Cooper had grass, one of the best trophy bass lakes in the state. When all the grass
I didn't know it ever
died,
had grass.
when all the grass died out, it's one of the worst bass lakes in the state. Those lakes in that little region right there, it's fertile territory, it's fertile ground in there, and they can grow grass. And when they grow grass, those lakes are unbelievably good. And when they don't grow grass, they're just kind of like another lake. And so what I picture happening on Boat Ark is for about 10 years, 11, maybe 15 years, when it's real fertile, we're going to kill it out there. It's going to be insane. Like everybody goes out there is going to catch them. We're going to have grass growth in it. And then after you get about past 15 years, if that grass don't stay in there, you'll see that lake go and just be a normal lake.
And
I kinda
everybody will
wanna-
move in there and they want the grass killed.
Yeah,
And the lake doesn't
especially
have-
with its proximity to the north side of DFW, which is where DFW is growing the most, is that direction.
I'm kind of wanting to go out there before it fills and start getting some coordinates of some drain ditches and.
The thing to do right now is if you know like a print shop or something, you can go on Google Earth right now and it still doesn't show a fill, and you can see the whole you can see where the lake's gonna be pretty much. So if you could get like a zoomed in picture of it, you would know a lot what
You can just do that and do screenshots on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to a couple of guys. They said it's pretty full up there. It's pretty well full.
It's getting
Oh
close.
really?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to open next summer.
I know it's choking down Cooper because they cut off Sulphur River. Don't know what that's gonna do.
Y'all got any more questions about anything? No? Hey, man, appreciate you guys coming out. Appreciate y'all watching online. Cody, thanks for doing it. Thank you, Lake Fork Marina. We'll see y'all.